Happy Friday here at the Scarlet Faithful podcast. This is Aaron Brightman coming to you with a preview for Rutgers Purdue, number 2 Purdue, on Sunday at 1 p.m., a nationally televised game on Fox. Tim Brando and LaFonso Ellis on the call. Should be a raucous environment at the rack. And I get it. Not a lot of reasons for optimism coming into this game based on play so far this season. Purdue is the most efficient offense in the country. They are number 2 ranked in the country. They have been dominant, and they have a ton. Their resume is very, very good. They have 2 losses this season, 2 road losses, both in the Big Ten, at Northwestern, at Nebraska. We know that Rutgers has had a lot of success recently. They've won 5 of its last 7 against the Boilermakers, dating back to 2020. Under Steve Peichel, Purdue, they've beaten Purdue at the rack 3 out of 4 times. The one loss was in 2018 with Corey Sanders, and Purdue was number 3 Ken Pom back then. Rutgers was 130, and they lost by 2 points. For whatever reason, just have that game very much etched in my memory, and that was a dogfight, and Rutgers almost pulled that off. And you're talking about now, if you want to look at stats, Purdue is 2 and Rutgers is 97. And I bring that up because, I got a comment this week, that I was my credibility was in question because I said it was possible that Rutgers could win this game. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but it's like, listen, first of all, it's college basketball. Anything can happen on any given night. And if you know this sport, you know that to be true. Secondly, Rutgers has had a lot of success against Purdue. And I know everybody says, oh, well, this year's different, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But even dating back to just the hit, sometimes matchups. And in terms of what Rutgers has done well against Purdue in the past, they've contained Edey somewhat. Cliff obviously is the best post defender that Edey will face in the Big Ten this year. And he's done a relatively good job against them. And, one key reason for concern, I think, and difference in this matchup is that the size of the Rutgers guards in the past has been a problem for Purdue. And it goes to physicality and just in terms of closing out on shooters and also being disruptive, forcing turnovers. So that's a little bit different in this matchup. But all that being said, this matchup has shown us, 2 years ago, right? Purdue was number 1 in the country. Rutgers had that 3-game slide. They lost to Lafayette at home. They lost to DePaul. They lost at UMass. And it's crazy. One of the crazier box scores you'll ever see is if you look at that Purdue Rutgers box score from what was that, December 21, when Ron hit the buzzer beater. If you look at that box score and not the final score, you would not think that Rutgers won that game. Not even close. I think they had 16 turnovers in that game. So this matchup has just proven that, Rutgers has had Purdue's number. And in terms of matchups this year, listen, Rutgers' 2 best wins are at Seton Hall and Nebraska at home. What do those 2 games have in common? Rutgers hit double-digit threes. They hit 12 against Seton Hall. They were 12 of 25, I believe. And they made 11 of 29 against Nebraska. Is it the only 2 games they had double-digit threes this year? Yes, it's the only 2 games. And so, again, whether that's repeatable, it's not going to happen all the time, right? But Purdue is a team that dares you to shoot threes. They do. And for a team that doesn't shoot very well 2-point-wise, I doubt the game you're going to break out is against Zach Edey in the paint. So Rutgers has to be hunting threes in this game. And it can't just be, one pass, put up a contested 3. They really have to be disciplined in their offensive approach. And, we've seen when this team moves the ball and they're able to reverse it, they're able to get some movement, better spacing. they can hit threes, and they can make them within the flow of the offense. Who's going to make threes in this game? Obviously, Andre Hyatt has to hit. I really think a key player in this game is Noah Fernandes. Now, Purdue's guard size, is not so daunting. Fletcher Lawyer is 6'4", but you have Lance Jones and Braden Smith. Braden Smith's 6 foot. Lance Jones is 6'1". Now, both are exceptionally good players. But what I'm saying is, Fernandes-wise, he's not going to be so disadvantaged size-wise. He's got to be, I think, a huge offensive force in this game. He can't be, a liability on defense. But at the same time, when he's clicking offensively, Rutgers is better. It's just the way it is. I think he's going to have to be key. Derek Simpson, you need that facilitator from the Nebraska game. He was phenomenal in that game in terms of how he found his teammates. Again, I'll go back to that dagger three that basically clinched the game, where Derek had the ball and he passed it to Austin Williams. He got it back. He moved it to Hyatt, and then he was moving the ball back and forth, and then Hyatt did a couple dribble penetration, found a wide open Williams on the other side, and he buried the three. And that's the type of approach they have to have in this game, because they will find open looks behind the arc against Purdue. And I think the three biggest keys in this game is you have to hit threes, and you have to obviously defend the arc against Purdue. They're an excellent three-point shooting team. That's point one. Purdue is shooting, 40.6% from three. It's fourth best nationally. And they have a bunch of guys that can kill you. Braden Smith shooting 43%. Lance Jones, 36%. Fletcher Lawyer, 44%. Trey Kaufman-Renn, 44%. Miles Colvin, 43%. Mason Gill is 51%. Now, they don't all have equal attempts, but this is a team that has multiple shooters. You have to be aware. A big thing Purdue likes to do is they like to push it off of defensive rebounds, which they're very good in terms on the glass. They are, limiting their opponents are just offensive rebound percentage 24%, which is extremely low. That's top 20 in terms of defense for Purdue. And they're very good on the offensive glass. They're 15th nationally as well in terms of offensive rebounding percent efficiency. So they pound you on the glass, but they look to run off of defensive rebounds and bury open threes in transition. So, identifying the trailer, knowing where the shooters are on the floor at all times. Rutgers they have to be locked in defensively, but it's not just about slowing Purdue down in the half court. They have to get back, but they have to have awareness, and you can't have any mental lapses in this game. And I think obviously starting there's a lot of keys, right? There's a lot of keys. You can't get in a double-digit hole early again like they have been getting. But I think the 3-point arc, right? You have to hold your own there. I think just based on the numbers in terms of Purdue's losses and Rutgers' big wins, they have to hit double-digit threes. The more they can contain Purdue from three, the better. I think turnovers has to be a factor. That was kind of Purdue's one weakness, is they do turn it over a lot. They don't force a lot of turnovers. You have to win the turnover margin. You have to win the points off of turnovers margin, I think, by a pretty solid number. They have to be, Rutgers has been good in transition. They just haven't had an opportunity to do so. And against a rebounding team like Purdue, it's going to be hard. So they're probably going to have to do it mostly off turnovers. Now, do they have the size to do that, to create issues on the perimeter? JaMychal Davis, Noah Fernandes, Derek Simpson, at times, they've all kind of, they've gotten on the ball steals before. Can they be disruptive? Can they make Braden Smith, Lance Jones, Lawyer to an extent, can they make them uncomfortable? I think you will see some full court press in this game. It really bothered Purdue last year, even in the Big Ten tournament when Purdue won. So I think you'll see some of that. So I think it's, the 3-point line battle, turnovers. And then I think if Rutgers can get Zach Edey in foul trouble, especially in the first half, that will, this is not a groundbreaking statement, but Purdue is not the same team when Edey's not on the floor. And getting him out of sorts right, makes that whole team in terms of like their strategy, but also just what they do best. They're going to be a little bit off balance if you can get him in foul trouble. And with Cliff, you have a chance to. Now, Edie is really, Purdue as a team doesn't foul much at all. And they're very good at getting in the line, and they're very good shooting from the line. So you have to be careful in that regard. You have to defend without fouling. I'm just looking up Edie. So he had 4 fouls in a win over Illinois. He had 4 fouls in the loss to Northwestern. He had 4 fouls in a win against Tennessee. So were those all on the road? Those were all on the road. So you got to get him in foul trouble. I think that's key. Obviously, you have to hold him. You have to contain me. You don't want Edie to get 25, 30 points, 15 rebounds, and just feast on you. Again, I think Cliff will hold his own there. Cliff, has looked much better offensively. I did a little quick highlight video this week breaking that down. He's getting I think positioning is big for both of them, right? Like Cliff has been more effective in the post when he's farther down, when he's near the rim. He was doing that really well against Illinois. He was really backing down Coleman Hawkins. Obviously, you're not going to have that type of mismatch in this game. But on the flip side, right, you can't let Edie get the ball either at the block. Like the more that Edie can be away from the rim, the better off Rutgers is going to be. So he is a solid passer. He's 7'4". He's got decent vision. So that's part of it. You can't have Edie kill you with finding shooters behind the arc. That's why, you can't lose track of those guys, and you have to close out on the 3. But I do think there's a path here. There is a path. There is a formula to winning this game. And it's hitting threes. It's forcing turnovers and getting points off of them. You're not going to – I don't think you're going to win the rebounding battle in this game, but you can't get decimated either. You can't be minus 20 in rebounding margin. You can't allow Purdue to get, 20 second chance points in this game. But then it's, how do you contain Edie? And if you can get him off the floor for periods of time, that could be an opportunity. So it's college basketball. Anything could happen. I do think there is a clear picture of how Rutgers could win this game. I would be very surprised if, those things didn't happen and they won. You can't expect them to win this game, but I wouldn't be shocked. I really won't be shocked no matter what happens. They could lose by 20. They could win. They really could. And I think a key, obviously, is the crowd's going to be awesome. You have to use the crowd as much as possible. So you can't start 1 of 9 from the floor, like they've been starting and fall behind, 12-4. Like you just can't do it in this game because, sure, you could come back, but it'll be an up. You don't want to put yourself in a hole right off the bat against arguably the best team in the country, a team that has been pretty unbeatable. I just wanted to look up real quick what these teams are in the Big Ten in terms of efficiency. Yeah, Purdue's number 1 offensively and number 5 defensively. Rutgers is last offensively and 3rd defensively. It's going to be the type of thing where Rutgers is going to have to get some big performances. Obviously Cliff has to show up both as a rim defender and he's got to contribute offensively. They've been very effective with a high ball screen of late, even when, they're not finding Cliff on the roll. It's creating space for the guards to drive. And Cliff has been really good as the trailer, grabbing offensive rebounds. So, again, because if you're doing that as well, if you're doing the high ball screen, you're bringing Edie away from the basket. So Cliff's got to be really active in this game, and they need to run plays that gets Edie away from the basket and allows Cliff to operate a little bit more in open space and makes it harder for Edie to defend him. And I think that's when you pick up fouls, when you've Cliff rolling to the rim and Edie adjusting and not just camp down there, this happened in the Big Ten tournament game last year where, they were posting Cliff up against Hunter, Dickinson, and Edie, and it just really wasn't working, and it's no secret. And I've said it 1,000 times, but when he's in open space, when he's rolling off his screens, when he's in transition, when Rutgers, the guards are, specifically, Fernandez, I think, has been pretty good in terms of looking for Cliff. Simpson's done a better job, but those two guys in particular got to get Cliff the ball in space. And, that will help open up the perimeter a little bit. So they're going to have to do a lot of things well, and it's certainly an uphill battle. And I get why people don't believe it can happen. But if anything, this program has taught us that anything's possible, especially against Purdue, and Peichel just he schemes really well against what Purdue does. And the fact that Edey hasn't had a huge game against them yet, maybe he's due on Sunday, maybe not, but certainly an opportunity for Peichel to once again be disruptive just in terms of the game plan. I wanted to harp on all that. And I think that also, in terms of what the bench does, and I know people keep asking to shorten the bench, I do agree to a point. I think, playing 9 guys at this point is tough. I think he's trying to keep everybody invested, keeping everybody into it, and also not kind of I don't think you have anyone on this team that can play 35 minutes a night. So I think that's part of it. But I think you got to ride the hot hands in this game. And I think the starters, if they can show out a little bit, I think you have to be definitely aware of, the kind of the state of the game, especially early in that second half. How they end the half and how they start the second half against a team like Purdue is so critical. You could play a really good first half, and then if you fall apart those last couple minutes, it kind of ruins it. You can't go into half, with a deficit of 8-10. I mean, of course you can, but it's going to just make it a lot harder. It's, basketball is a game of runs, and the more that Rutgers can avoid kill shots, right, which is a 10-plus point run, they can't allow that in this game. They can't. And who on offense is going to step up and be the guy to stop a run? I think that is kind of an overwhelming question of this season for the Rutgers offense is who is the guy on the team that's going to stop a big run on the other side? Who can make a shot, make a play, and end that momentum and start to turn things around? So that's something to watch for. But, obviously they're going to need a lot of strong individual performances. They're going to have to be super connected on defense. They're going to have to close out on shooters. Cliff's going to have one of his best games and hold his own against Edey. The more they can get him off the floor, the better. But I think just in terms of, and then we're talking about turnovers and all that, Rutgers obviously has to be careful with the ball. They just have to be very disciplined, and they have to be focused in this game. They can't lose focus. They can't get frustrated. They can't slip up. It's a 40-minute game. They want it to be a rock fight. Purdue can get rattled. They got rattled at Nebraska. So they got blown out there, and Nebraska shot the lights out. So we know that this team is capable. I mean, maybe you don't think that, but I do. And just in terms of how they played against Seton Hall, how they've responded against Nebraska, this is a huge opportunity. This is a season-changing potential win. And, Ken Palm projects, was it a 12-point win, I believe, for Purdue. They're saying, 77-64. But it's been a house of horrors at the rack for Purdue lately. This Rutgers team's going to, they've had a week off. They've had a week to prepare. People like it's true, right? Shiano, the more time he has to prepare, the better. I think Peichel's that way too. And it's against a team that he's schemed very well against in the past. So I think it's going to be a dogfight. Not saying Rutgers is going to win, but I think that there is certainly a path there for them to win. And if that hurts my credibility, then so be it. But this is college basketball. Anything can happen. And it's the end of January. Rutgers doesn't have a bad loss yet. They have 2 good wins. 2. Seton Hall, Nebraska. 2 tournament teams, I think, at this point. They have a chance to get a signature win, make a huge statement on Sunday. I know the Rack faithful will be wild, and I'll be back after the game with my rapid reaction. I also have pretty big basketball guests coming up, which will be out either late Friday or early Saturday. Thanks for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful.